Welcome to the film analysis, today featuring Avatar 2, The Way of Water by James Cameron. The first part was released in 2009 and unfortunately triggered a 3D craze. 13 years later, after many delays, the second part has been released. One must endure 192 minutes, but Avatar 2 is technically up to date and modern 3D glasses enable a relatively relaxed watch. Better computing power, a huge team and a lot of money render it possible. The film supposedly must earn $2 billion to be profitable, but when we talk about Avatar 2, we must state this is the film par excellence. How is that to be understood? Even though many forms of media rival cinema, here once again cinema proves to be the ultimate mirror of society. If one wanted to sum up our time in a single sentence, it would probably have to be everything is possible and nothing is possible. That's Avatar 2. Not what James Cameron shows us, but what his work tells us. Everything is possible and nothing is possible. We must unravel the sentence. At first, the story seems to be conceivably simple. 10 years have passed. The former soldier Jake Sully has become completely at home in his avatar Na'vi body and has made himself at home in Pandora. He founded a family with Neytiri, 2 sons and a daughter, adopted the teenagers Kiri and Javier. The latter is human. But now the peaceful times are over. The humans still want to conquer and exploit Pandora. The Resource Development Administration now considers Earth uninhabitable. So an exit strategy is needed, such as colonizing the moon and draining the energy from Pandora. Sully must flee with his family, grudgingly taken in by the Metkayina people living by the sea. Like the inhabitants of Pandora, the Metkayina are not democratically organized. Tonowari is their leader and rules. The RDA soon searches for Sully and the other Na'vis. In addition, the Metkayina people possess an important resource they want to exploit. Pandora's inhabitants face questions of assimilation and integration. Sully and his family are not well received by the coastal inhabitants. At first, even the children tease each other about looking different. Can they accept the other? To what extent do they have to assimilate? An issue for the Na'vi soldiers as well. The soldiers, the RDA, cloned to appear as blue Pandora inhabitants so that they can fight effectively in this jungle. This could be interesting. The Na'vi soldiers, who are not really Na'vis, are doing what has long been practiced by the West in the age of asymmetric wars. They are fighting a partisan war. You must be a partisan to be able to fight partisans. Movies like Rambo or Predator address this issue too. By bringing Sully's adopted human son under their control, who in turn speaks the Na'vi language, the identity becomes permeable, for a while at least. Great potential for a discourse beyond identity, not least because in the meantime Sully's son Lo'ak befriends a Tulkun whale cast out by his fellow Na'vi. Yes, there are some free willy moments and one could experience a communicative drama like Arrival. In Rudiments, that is also a given. A clear friend-foe dichotomy is questioned, but perhaps Sully Tonowari and the others do not want to believe in this harmony. The Tulkuns, after all, appear to be intelligent beings. They even seem superior to humans. Not to be taken as esotericism, however, the Catholic philosopher Robert Spähmann also elaborated on this in his philosophy on personal rights he introduced in place of human rights. Human rights like to be conferred and denied, a tricky story, hence he prefers to speak of personal rights. Spähmann said, "There can and must be only one criterion for personhood, biological membership of the human sex." Regarding Avatar 2, we are talking about fish and not people. Well, Spähmann continues, personhood rights are human rights, and if other natural species were to be found in the universe that are alive, have sentient interiority, and whose adult specimens often dispose over rationality and self-awareness, we would have to recognize not only those, but all specimens of that species as persons as well, so possibly all dolphins, for example. Avatar 2 contains this very philosophy. The Tulkun could be persons, all of them, they are even capable of composing. Assimilation means massive adaptation. Free expression won't get you far. The Pandora inhabitants must submit to the rituals of the coast. On the one hand, it's about integration, learning to breathe so you can handle the water, but it's about more than that. Assimilation insofar as Sully and the others are supposed to submit to the culture of the Metkayina, even including a blood and soil ideology. Only at the end, when Edet from the Pandora clan lies with the Metkayina ancestors, are they truly integrated. We will adapt, promise Sully and his family. Being different is not really accepted here. Kiri is perhaps a small exception on a rudimentary level. Avatar 2 takes the family idea further. This is not just about people being social beings and therefore quite happy to live together as families. The family has a clearly ideological function in Avatar 2. It is first a bourgeois idea of happiness. Sully describes peaceful times, spending an evening with his wife, at times without children. But he describes family as our fortress, that there is always a threat outside, so we must hide and protect ourselves in this fortress. Incidentally, this patriarchally organized construct in the film, the family, constitutes the smallest cell of a national community. The family is the precursor and conditions a somewhat nation-state. Whoever defends the family defends the state and vice versa. All the delicate approximations in the first 2 hours suggesting that living together could also be organized in a completely different way are brutally cut through by the film. When the RDA, Na'vi lookalike soldiers, arrive on the coast and seek both revenge and the exploitation of resources, the film lapses back into friend-foe logic. All-out war remains. The film dwells on these battles quite some time, human soldiers being destroyed in the most brutal way. It's them or us. James Cameron allows no alternative. Everything must unite in submission to the ideal of victory. The destruction of the enemy is the only option left in the script. In the last hour of the film, all intermediate tones fade away, only the howl of war can be heard. A Hollywood Western in reverse. Here the Indians win, but the tables are only turned, reminding us of Wakanda Forever. In addition, there is this triumph of good, using the children as rhetorical weapon. The children of Sully and Tonowari must be freed from the soldiers' clutches. Children represent innocence, justifying any means. The film deliberately tries to justify the war and all the war spectacle we get to see with this thought-terminating cliché. Avatar 2 contrasts all quite on the Western front. The enemy is the target, the absolute evil. The film also links this justification strategy with an eco-discourse, saving the climate from the evil exploiters. At the same time, Sully repeatedly utters phrases like, "A father protects," or about family, "Here we fight back. Home is where the family is." Where it is completely assimilated into the community, that's where you fight back. The other and outside represents the enemy, the inexorable logic to which James Cameron subordinates everything. Everything outside the national community is potentially threatening and must be destroyed. The family here is the nation state, we would say today. Thus, the film relates to our present, our world. One is only accepted into the community with a dead family member lying by the ancestors. This ancestor cult is reminiscent of The Lion King or Wakanda Forever. Before, of course, the Avatar soldiers act brutally and represent aggressors, but the film's premise fails to compel. One could also tell something else here. Everything could be completely different. That's exactly what we are denied the ability to see. What one can see in the first Avatar movie, one can also see in the second one. You can paraphrase the famous Dolly Parton quote. She said, "It takes a lot of money to look this cheap." In Avatar, it takes a lot of technology to look this natural. For example, in the water, the spatiality is impressive and reminds us of an ocean documentary, but we must grasp the ideological constellation of our time once again with this sentence: everything is possible and nothing is possible. Technology allows spectacular images. It is amazing how computing power has developed. The film not only illustrates this sentence, everything is possible and nothing is possible, but proves to be the sentence's product. In Avatar 2, 72-year-old Sigourney Weaver plays the teenager Kiri, enabled by digital rejuvenation. But at the same time, nothing is possible. The policy that the film promotes is still the old one. The old ideological barriers still prevail, causing war. There is enough wealth for radical redistribution, but politically nothing is possible. Social media could give everyone access to education, but it is dominated by inane influencer content. Ultimately, nothing changes. Nothing else is possible, as the logic of exploitation is the same. Hollywood exploits dull feelings, as the poor children the adults want to save demonstrate. Immediately, every nationalist feeling mobilizes and forms itself anew. Avatar works according to RDA logic. Only the resource differs. Feelings are the resources to be exploited. The technical possibilities are enormous. James Cameron spent a long time on this film, and further sequels are being planned, but the story doesn't add anything new. It doesn't ask, with all this technology at one's disposal, how could one tell something different? How could one shape coexistence in a different way? How could one, for example, prevent a war? Hence, the film mirrors the present. The technical possibilities everywhere today are enormous, but they have not led us to progress in civilization. Rather, the opposite when we look at armament or communication channels. It is also important to consider the aesthetics. 3D is more pleasant now, but is that really the reason why people go to the cinema? For 3D, you could go to the theater, where you have three-dimensionality. Is that really why we want to go to the cinema? 3D imagery resembles the metaverse or computer games. The only difference between film and a computer game or metaverse is that we can't interact in film. The 3D classes remind us of cinema's limitations, whereas in a computer game we can at least play. In the metaverse, they promise us that we can enter the room. Do we really want to experience something three-dimensional in the cinema, something that supposedly has always been missing when we watch a 2D film? Do we truly long for more spatiality? After all, 3D depth wears out very quickly. The cinema is not just theater. That's why 3D is not decisive. The writer Jean Amery, in an essay entitled Cinema, Texts on Film, reflected on cinema, stating, "If I am right, then the incomparable quality of film, which cannot be caught up by any stage technique, lies in two phenomena that have nothing to do with the development of this art." He already shows here that film is constantly making progress, but the fundamental nature of film has remained the same from silent film to modern Hollywood film. Amery continues, "I am talking about the horizon that has been opened up to us in a completely new way, in front of which the small grows into the immensely large, and where immeasurable vastness recedes before our eyes to the comparatively small dimensions of the screen. Today, thanks to cinematographic art, both have become part of the overall space of our optical imagination in such a way that, on the one hand, when we are told about battles or manhunts, we always associate them with film images. And on the other hand, the human face is conveyed to us as a cinematic experience." End of quote. That's what we experience in Avatar and all other films. The big may become small, the small can become big, the vastness may diminish, something condensed in space. But it doesn't relate to three-dimensionality. Cinema roots in fairground attraction. In a way, James Cameron is taking it back to this fairground. A theme park dramaturgy also fits in with this. At least in the first 2 hours, the characters experience individual attractions, we experience it with them. Surprisingly, not a single image sticks in these 192 minutes. You are unable to name the 3 or 4 iconic images like with other films. Even Cameron's own other works. Remembering Titanic leads us immediately to 5 unforgettable images, true cinema history. Similarly with Terminator 2. Interestingly, we don't find that in Avatar 2. Impressive images at first glance, but quickly tiring as there is nothing to see. The style mutated into a brand. Everything is blue. Everything can be developed further, and one more fantasy being is added on top. Adorno and Horkheimer already wrote in the cultural industry chapter of the Dialectic of Enlightenment that style doesn't mean to just create a brand like that, but a decent style undermines the common aesthetics, fights it, doesn't attempt to simply produce this conformity of the commodity. Style must be directed against the style itself. In Avatar 2, however, we witness an incredible uniformity of aesthetics. It's matched by a simple worldview. There's no mystery anywhere. Take a film noir, for instance. There's a shadow hinting to a potential abyss. Or take a film of Italian neorealism, where the rough wall still tells us something, delivers a structure, promising more. Despite the three-dimensionality, Avatar 2 remains a tremendously flat film, generating only generic images. Let's call it chatbot images. We only watch, but do not see. It would be nice if you would like to support the film analysis financially. You can do so via my bank account or PayPal. Also, you can find me on Patreon. Thank you very much.